Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to go over all of my 2021 favorite reads. So these are going to be books that I gave 5 stars to, that I have not been able to stop thinking about, and that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So one of my favorite series that I read this year is going to be the Boston Underworld series by Zaverelli. This series was really good. It was about the Irish Mafia mainly, and then a sprinkle of the Russian Mafia. I just found that the books were very well written. I was intrigued throughout the whole series. There's 5 books and I binged them all at once. I think I binged them in less than a week, and so because of that, all of the books kind of mesh. When I do that, that tends to happen, and I forget kind of what went with what book. So I don't recommend doing what I did, but the whole series was amazing. Next on my list is going to be Greenland Barbarians by Rubi Dixon. I never knew I was into sci-fi, fantasy, aliens, that sort of thing until TikTok, and I became obsessed with this series. I haven't finished it. I am reading all of the novellas as well as like the shorts and all of that stuff. So I believe there's 42 books in the whole. So I have not completed all 42, and I have read these back to back as well. I believe I stopped at the 4th book, but I have read all of the novellas in between books 1 through 4. So 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, that sort of thing. And I loved this series. I've never read anything like it. Like I said, it kind of got me out of my typical man, female, strong CEO, that sort of thing, and got me into something that I never knew that I was going to be into, which was sci-fi. Never knew that I was going to be into it, but I'm all here for it. Does the spice help? Yes, absolutely. That's probably why I love it so much. The next series that I fell so in love with was the Filthy Rich American series. There are 5 books total in this series. However, I've just read the first 3. First 3 follow Marist and Royce, and kind of a situation between them and McAllister. I was obsessed with this. Again, I binged this series until I hit the 3rd book. The 3rd book didn't end how I wanted it to be completely honest, but I was obsessed. I've never read anything like this, and I wished for a different outcome, but I still loved this series. I can't wait to read the 4th and the 5th book because those follow a different character, kind of a sort of spin-off, if you will, but very much enjoyed this series. This is a series that I purchased on my Kindle, and then I bought paperback. Now, I only bought the initiation. I haven't bought the others, but even though I've read it, I still bought it afterwards because I want this in my collection because I'm that obsessed. Okay. Okay, another book that I read this year that I did not think I was gonna like, just didn't think it was my cup of tea, is Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. I love Pam Godwin and her writing, her style, and she tends to write very dark romances, but that are kind of lighthearted. And this I would consider a historical romance, as the fact that it follows pirates and it takes place obviously in the past. So I was obsessed with this book. It's a little bit longer than what I typically read. I usually like to read books that are on average about 200 to 300 pages. This was a little bit longer. However, I didn't even recognize that it was. Yeah, so this is almost 500 pages, and I think I read it in like less than 2 days. The next series that I absolutely loved is the Monster in Us series by Marie Anne. This is Creep, and then the sequel is Monster. This is a very dark romance, and I don't even know if it would fully be considered a romance for the first book, but I was obsessed. Now, I definitely would recommend checking trigger warnings. Even for a lot of the books that I have mentioned, I tend to not be very sensitive to trigger warnings, but just warning content. This series was very dark, but very, very good. Right up my alley. The next book that I read, I didn't think I was gonna like, is Priest by Simone. This was all over TikTok, and I just really didn't think I was gonna like it that much, but I was enthralled, enamored. Everything about the spice, the chemistry, the connection between the characters was absolutely phenomenal, and it was such an amazing read. Again, this was something that I never thought I would like to read. I'm not a religious person, and the fact that it is a priest and they are Catholic, I just didn't think I was gonna like it, but I was obsessed. Next book that I was obsessed with this year is The Professional by Kresley Cole. I put this book off. I didn't really think that I was going to like it, but I'm obsessed with this book. I'm kind of upset that I put it off for so long because it's so good. Now, this book follows a Russian mafia, and it's kind of like a bodyguard romance. Very spicy. There are elements of BDSM in this, and there is a specific scene in this book that had me so hot and bothered. I literally had to take a break away from this book to catch my breath because it was so hot. So hot. Another book that I read is Broken by Willow Winters. This follows, and I don't want to give away too much as I feel like it will kind of ruin the outcome of the book. I will say that I powered reading through this, all right? Like, I picked it up and I did not put it down until it was done. This is probably the one and only book that I've done this to this year, where I've just steadily read it for consecutive hours. I believe it took me like 4 to 5 hours maybe, and I just blew through it. Amazing. Now this follows Olivia and Cade, and Olivia sees something that she shouldn't see, and so she is taken against her will and held against her will by Cade, and then she belongs to him. So this is their story, and it's so good. An amazing book that I put off for so long. I purchased this at the beginning of this year, and I just read it in the month of November because I knew it was going to make me cry, and I don't like crying, and I don't like being sad. I don't like being sad. I blew through this book, and it was so good. This is 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tillie Cole. I immediately purchased this after More to Mary, which is a booktuber here on YouTube, and she was sobbing in one of her Instagram stories talking about this book and how she was just mad because it made her cry too. And if Mary likes it, I'm gonna buy it or I'm gonna read it, no questions asked. Like, girl, sold. I'm reading it. And it was so good. It was so cute. Not like anything that I typically read. Like I said, I typically read very heavily spiced books or extremely dark in their mannerisms and that sort of thing. I would consider this to be YA, but I loved it. I also don't want to give what happens in the story away. I went into this book completely blind. Like I said, if you are sensitive to certain subject manners, definitely check your trigger warnings before you read anything, because this community, you can write about anything. So another very, very dark book that I read this year is Tears of Tess by Pepper Winters. This book was very dark. So Tess and her boyfriend take a trip to Mexico, and she is abducted there and sold into you can guess, okay? But this is a very dark and twisted element to it. It's not like anything that I've read before, where usually the man will kind of be softer or gentler on the female. This is not the case. It's very dark, but very good. Definitely check your trigger warnings. But I am a sucker for a kidnap romance. I love that ish, you know? There are honestly so many amazing books, and I can honestly just go on and on about all of the books that I read. I'm a very easily impressed reader. A lot of my books that I read are between a 4 and a 5 stars. So these are just some of the books that kind of stood out to me this year. Like I said, there are so many. I could make a second video of literally all of the books that I put as 5 stars. But I am going to wrap up the video there. That is it for now. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.